Welcome back to Boat Break. I've got a really interesting selection of books to talk to you about today. These are 9 books that are sparking really important conversations, and we should just be talking about these books to as many people as possible. I can guarantee that every single book on this list will teach you something, will open your mind to something, will spark a thought, spark an idea, so the more conversations we have about these books, the better. The first book I've got here is A Bigger Picture by Vanessa Nakate. This is my proof copy here. The finished cover is going to look like this. So Vanessa Nakate is a climate activist. She actually became the first climate striker in Uganda at just 21 years old. And she also found herself cropped out of a photo taken with 4 of her other climate activist peers, all white, sparking a really important conversation about racism within social activism. One of the biggest injustices about climate change is that it's the people who are contributing to the problem the least who are suffering the worst effects. So particularly people from the global south, where climate change is already devastating communities, and yet people from the global south and people of colour in general are so often erased from the conversation. So as Vanessa Nakate says, we're on the front line, but we are not on the front page. So this book contains Vanessa's very personal story of finding her voice, and also looks at the much bigger picture, the links between climate change and racism, sexism, economics, even radicalisation, and looks at how we need to work together across continents. How to Just Eat It by Laura Thomas is a book that I have already talked a lot about on Boat Break. I'm a huge fan of it, but I just really wanted to include it in this video as well because it's so important. So Laura Thomas's first book was called Just Eat It. This one, How to Just Eat It, is a really hands-on workbook to guide you through the process of learning intuitive eating. Laura Thomas is firmly anti-diet culture. She points out throughout both of these books quite how toxic and damaging the society that we have all been raised in can be to our self-esteem and to our health. But she's also very understanding of the fact that for most of us, we've been raised within this system for so long, it is not as simple as just waking up one morning, realizing that diets are bad for us, and then never worrying about food again. That is why it has taken a really hand-holding workbook to guide you through the steps. I've been working my way through this and I absolutely love it. It feels like therapy in a book. And as well as being great on a personal level, the reason that I think so many of us should be talking about this book and this series is because it will change the way we talk on a larger scale, therefore causing less damage to each other. Cracking the Menopause While Keeping Yourself Together by Mariella Frostrup and Alice Smelly takes a look at a topic that we do not talk about enough, menopause, as something that roughly 50% of the population are going to go through at some point in their life. Myself being in the group that will experience it, I don't really know anything about it because we don't talk about it. Without this book, all I could tell you is it involves hot flashes and it's something that people are a bit embarrassed about when it happens to them. That does not seem right or fair. What's really great about this book is it includes a huge range of diverse voices as well as the 2 main authors, because while on the one hand menopause is quite a unifying experience that around half of the population will go through, it is also a hugely different experience depending on where you are in the world, your background, your privilege. People with disabilities, people of colour, trans people are all going to experience menopause differently and in some ways are going to find themselves excluded from the conversation around menopause, and so this book aims to correct that. Another topic that we do not talk about in a deep and diverse enough way is pregnancy. So this book, Nobody Tells You by Becca Mabley, is filled with really honest stories about pregnancy, birth and parenthood. We absolutely do talk about pregnancy a lot, but I feel like I hear the same story over and over again, and it's basically about how magical an experience pregnancy is. This book is a lot more honest. It's not fear-mongering, but it's also not sugarcoating, and it includes so many different stories that it shows you pregnancy and birth and parenthood is going to be a different experience for every single person. There is no right way to do it, and that's really reassuring. Next here I've got Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man by Emmanuel Acho. So this book is a really empathetic, essential guide to systemic racism. Emmanuel Acho also has a video series of the same name, and in there and in the book he dives into concepts such as cultural appropriation, reverse racism, white privilege, with a very open and generous approach. Over the last few years, conversations around systemic racism have become more prevalent, which is fantastic, but they have also become more fraught. So this book provides a space for compassion and understanding and empathy, which is really important. Section by section, this book tackles so many of the questions, big or small, that a lot of white people are afraid to ask. If we don't ask the questions, we can't work out the answers. So that's the approach that this book takes. That also doesn't mean that you should just go asking all of these questions to every black person in your life, because that is going to be exhausting for them. So that is why it's so essential that a book like this exists. Maybe I Don't Belong Here by David Harewood is another really fascinating book about race, this time about the intersection of race and mental health. So David Harewood is an actor, and 30 years ago he suffered what he now understands to be a psychotic breakdown. So in this book he looks back at that experience and what that experience was like specifically for him as a black man. The book asks a very important question right here on the back. Is it possible to be black and British and feel welcome and whole? And if that is a question that needs asking, it is a massively important question that needs addressing. So this book is a really deep and personal exploration of what it feels like to be black and British, of the biases that exist in our society and how that led to his specific treatment during his mental health crisis. But the book is also about recovery. David Harewood went on to become a critically acclaimed actor, so amongst all of the very difficult, very upsetting questions and stories in here, there is also a running thread of hope. Think Like a Breadwinner by Jennifer Barrett is a really interesting book about how women are socially conditioned away from being the breadwinners of their family. So most women are working, and in fact a lot of women are the breadwinners of their family, but women have not yet been taught how to think like a breadwinner. There is a lot of cultural conditioning for us to break through, so this book really takes you through step by step how women can earn more, how they can worry less about money, what they need to know about investing. And again, this book has a huge range of case studies from loads of different women at different stages of their financial lives, so you get a really broad picture. Even these days, a lot of women who are the breadwinners for their family can sometimes feel like it's a position they were unwillingly forced into, or sometimes that's the way people talk about them. But actually, being a breadwinner should be an incredibly empowering experience. And this book will show you how. Scary Smart by Mo Gawdat is all about artificial intelligence, a conversation which definitely I've heard more and more people fretting about, but we don't know what to do about it. This book gives you the facts. Yes, artificial intelligence is putting humanity as we know it at risk. These machines are going to be scary smart. And I'm not just talking about their IQ. AI that becomes 1 billion times as intelligent as humans will also be able to feel more emotions than we can ever feel. But it doesn't have to be as terrifying as that sounds. In this book, Mo Gawdat explains how we, the everyday readers of this book, not just the policymakers, not just the top scientists, we can make a difference to protect the future of humanity. After all, these machines are going to be powered by the data they have been fed from us, the humans. And finally, I'm going to finish off with a fiction recommendation, State of Terror, which is a political thriller written by Hillary Clinton along with Louise Penny. So this book gives an inside look to the incredibly high-stakes world of international politics, where Hillary Clinton has had a front row seat. The book is fiction, but fiction that doesn't fall far from the truth. It describes a tumultuous period in American politics, a country recovering from a damaging presidency and an increased international threat. All sound a little bit familiar? This is a fantastic page-turning high-stakes thriller that will leave you a little worried about what goes on behind closed doors. So those are the books that I think we all need to be talking about at the moment. I would love to hear any recommendations that you have of really important books at the moment. Do leave them in the comments below. I will also leave a link here to a playlist of all of our other non-fiction book recommendation videos, so do click through and have a browse, and I'll see you next time.